Art hacks.
My first hack is to roll a kneaded eraser after my sketch to help lighten it as well as avoid smudges on my artwork. To avoid tearing your paper from masking tape, simply stick the tape onto your shirt or a pair of jeans a couple of times. The fibers make it grip less onto your paper, so when you peel it, it comes off perfectly every single time without damaging your paper. Lastly, activate your watercolors with water a couple minutes before painting. This will help maximize the vibrancy of your colors. Just look how beautiful it looks.
Five ways to paint skin from least to most realistic. Starting with method number 1. Mix a skin tone and fill in the entire area with that color. Method number 2. Mix a lighter and darker version of that same skin tone to create a highlight, midtone, and shadow. Bonus tip, don't use black to darken your shadows like I am in this video. Something like raw umber is a much better shadow color for skin. Method number 3 is to simply warm up your highlights and cool down your shadows. Using value and temperature hand in hand is a great way to add dimension. Our fourth method is to mix 5 or more versions of that same skin tone, not only progressing from lighter to darker, but also switching from warm to cool to warm to cool to warm. It doesn't matter if you start with cool or warm, as long as you switch back and forth in that same pattern. Just apply the colors the same way that you would normally, as if they're going from light to dark. But it's really easy to mess up those values when you change the color temperature. You can test the values in your work by taking a picture, turning down the saturation, and turning up the contrast. If you see any hard lines, that means you need to lighten or darken those values. So here I am doing just that. I'm bringing all those values to a closer gradient while still keeping the warm, cool pattern. And as you can see, it worked pretty well. Our fifth and final method is to take that exact same palette and boost the saturation of the two colors that cross the highlight to shadow line. We want the transition from highlight to shadow to be the most saturated part of the whole painting. And make sure the values of your other paints keep up. These two ended up being about the same value, so I had to darken the right one off camera. Another good way to remember exactly where you want those most saturated colors to be is to remember that you want the darkest highlight and the lightest shadow to be these saturated hues. And while it might look crazy at first, it really pays off when you blend everything together. And these tricks don't just work on skin, they work on everything else you can paint too.
Art hacks that I wish somebody told me earlier. I was always told watercolor is permanent. If you mess up, you can't fix it. Well, guess what? You can. Another one, when the vibrant river of my Copic marker ran dry, I thought I had to get a new cartridge. Apparently not, just dump hand sanitizer on it, and it's good as new. I wish I knew this sooner. Do you have cheap acrylic paint that doesn't work very well but you don't want to throw it away? Just heat water and cornstarch until it turns into this thick, goopy consistency. Then just mix a little bit in with your cheaper paint and bam, look at that. More resources in the bio, happy drawing.
If you're like me and you used to draw trees like this, that's actually a broccoli. So let me show you my secret trick to draw realistic trees. You're gonna start with the trunk and then draw a bunch of circles like this where you want the branches and leaves to be in. Make sure the circles overlap a little bit, and now you're gonna draw this weird little lines like this over and over, trying to make it darker where the circles overlap. When you have something like this, you can add more weird tiny lines in random spots to create some random shadows. And if this is a little too fast, you can check out the longer version of this tutorial on my YouTube channel. But moving on, now you can draw some extra little branches poking out, but this time you're gonna actually draw the little leaves and just make these branches a little bit more detailed. And as you can see, it kind of looks like everything is made of these little leaves and not the weird lines we were doing before. For the trunk, you can hatch these fast lines like this, making the left side darker and also the top part like right under the leaves. And this is how you draw trees. Follow for more tutorials. Bye!
Art hacks that'll save you money, part 1. First up, we have these plastic food containers. All you do is add a couple of paper towels to it, spray it until it's damp, add your acrylic paint like you normally would, and this makes the paint not dry out and you can use it for weeks. Next up, we have Dawn dish soap, and I know this sounds weird, but if you have dirty graphite kneaded erasers, you can add a little bit of soap to them, wash it and dry it with a towel, and it literally cleans it like it's brand new. Next up, we have this medieval looking torture device thing, but it's actually a tube squeezer. And this is really cool because if you have half empty tubes of paint, this will squeeze out every last drop, saving you money. I have a million more of these, so if you want more, let me know.
How to transfer your sketch to a canvas. First, get a pencil. Then start shading the back of the sketch till it looks something like this. Take tape. Start overlining. Ta-da!
Here's one of the most underrated acrylic painting tips I've got. So you can see I don't have much paint on the brush. It's supposed to be black, barely going on. You spritz it with water, folks. That's the secret. I didn't reload the brush, but look how magically it spreads now.
How I painted this. First, I mixed up some acrylic paint. Now, some people will tell you not to use acrylic paint straight out of the tube. Don't listen to them. Do whatever you want. Then I started to build up layers of color. Now, layers being the key word. After that, I marked out the shadow shapes in oil. Now, it's important to mark out the shadow shapes and not the features themselves. After that, I started to build up a foundation of oil on the face, just really focusing on form. I repeated that process over and over until I started to get something that I liked. Still a work in progress, but I hope you